So thank you organizers. So the abstract which I will present today is a phase 2 study of Atezolizumab in combination with bevacizumab with a chemo partner being the platinum plus pemetrexed for patients with EGFR mutant metastatic NLCSC, and these patients were enrolled after their progression on first line EGFR TKI. So that is a ML4101. So first I will give the background of the study. So as we all were discussing, acquired resistance to EGFR TKI remains the most important problem for patient with EGFR mutated lung cancer, and especially if the patient doesn't have any EGFR T790 mutation, because for such patients we don't have any target therapy, single agent immunotherapy doesn't work, and we have to give them chemotherapy, but chemotherapy has a dismal PFS and response in such group of patients, with various studies showing PFS of around 4 to 5 months only. So one of the trial which included few such patients was the phase 3 trial, that is Empower 150 study, and it has studied the combination of Atezolizumab with bevacizumab, and here the chemo partner was paclitaxel and carboplatin in the first line treatment of patient with metastatic NSCLC, and this trial was a positive trial which has shown some extra benefit with this 4-drug popular ABCP regimen. So though it was mainly a first line study, it included around 8 to 10% of the patients. These patients were EGFR mutated lung cancer, and these patients were progressed on prior EGFR TKI. And they did an exploratory analysis of these a few patients, 8 to 10% of patients, and what they found that both PFS and OS was better when they received this 4-drug ABCP regimen. But though it was a positive trial, this trial had some evidence gap. These gaps were like they included only small group of EGFR mutant lung cancer patients, and these patients were mixed bag of both T790 and non-T790 mutations. And the most important thing was here the chemotherapy regimen used was paclitaxel carboplatin rather than the pemetrexed platinum combination we usually give in our patients. And they have used a very high dose of bevacizumab, that is 15 mg per kg, with such 4-drug regimen, which can be highly toxic, and we generally sometimes use a dose of only 7.5 mg per kg. So that's why this study was done, to explore the efficacy and safety of this combination of 4-drug, that is Atezolizumab plus bevacizumab with chemotherapy partner, that is pemetrexed and platinum, in EGFR mutated lung cancer progressed on prior EGFR TKI. So this was a study methodology. So it was a single arm phase 2 study. They included, as I told, they included patients with EGFR mutation lung cancer progressed on first line therapy, and the patients with T790M mutation were excluded actually from this trial, and the treatment regimen was Atezolizumab, bevacizumab was 7.5 mg per kg dose, and chemo was the pemetrexed and platinum. So they give first 4 cycles as induction regimen, and after that the maintenance was continued with the 3-drug without platinum compound being continued. And the primary endpoint of this trial was objective response rate, and the secondary endpoint was PFS and OS. So now coming to the patient distribution and baseline characteristics. So this was a very small study. Only 20 patients were enrolled in this study between April 2020 to December 21, with a median follow-up of 15.6 months. Out of these 20 patients, around 7 patients had received prior osimertinib in the first line. That accounts for around 35% of the patient, and around 35% of the patient had PD-L1 expression more than 1%. So coming to the results of this trial, the primary endpoint, that is objective response rate. So out of these 20 patients, 1 patient after 1 cycle of therapy had ITP. So it was that patient was excluded, and only finally 19 patients were considered for evaluation. And out of these 19 patients, around 8 patients responded with an overall response rate of 42%, and rest of the patient had stable disease. So it comes to the disease control rate of around 100%. That means every patient had some benefit, and there was no progression on this regimen with a median follow-up cutoff. And then PD-L1 expression, if you see results by PD-L1 expression, if the patient had a PD-L1 expression more than 1%, they had a significantly high response rate, around 85%, as compared to only 16% in a patient with PD-L1 expression less than 1%. So that means PD-L1 was a good biomarker here. So now coming to the secondary endpoint, that is PFS and OS. So these are the Kaplan-Meier curves of this PFS and OS. If you see here, the median PFS with this regimen was around 10.2 months, and OS was not mature till the data cutoff. So this median PFS of 10.2 months in a difficult to treat patient looks really impressive. And And it is almost comparable what we got with the ABCP regimen. So as this was this was a single arm study, there was no comparator arm for a comparison with any control group. So what they did a historical control comparison. So they collected a data of 53 patients which were treated in their institute historically between 2009 to 2020, and they included patients who received pemetrexed, platinum, and bevacizumab in this group of patients, and they have matched the baseline characteristics to avoid the bias. And what they found when they compared this data with this historical comparison, the 4-drug regimen had significantly better disease control rate, that is 100% versus only 64% with the historical cohort of 3-drug regimen. And PFS was also significantly better with the 4-drug, 10.2 months versus 5.9 months. So that means when you add atezolizumab to our 3-drug regimen, that is pemetrexed, platinum, and bevacizumab, you get better disease control rate and better PFS. Overall response rate and OS was also numerically better, but it was not statistically significant. So this is again the same thing. The PFS was better, OS was not mature, but it was numerically better. So the sole purpose of doing this study was to reduce the toxicity of ABCP regimen. So it was done by replacing the taxane with the pemetrexed and reducing the dose of bevacizumab. And what they found that the toxicity was significantly lower in this regimen. So if you compare with the ABCP regimen, the grade 4 toxicity was around 53% in that study, but in this study it was only 35% around, and the treatment discontinuation because of toxicity was only 3% as compared to the ABCP regimen 33%. So this regimen is not only effective but less toxic and better tolerated. So in conclusion, the combination treatment of atezolizumab, bevacizumab, and pemetrexed platinum provides a favorable efficacy in EGFR mutation positive lung cancer after failure of prior EGFR TKI. Patient with higher PD-L1 expression has better overall response rate, and even disease control rate and PFS is better when we add atezolizumab to our standard 3-drug regimen. Thank you.